Blessing and I met because we're working on a project together. Well, we have our pieces of a project in Minneapolis where Nicolette Street Mall is being redesigned by James Corner, field operations, and Blessing was commissioned to do the, are you going to talk about that project at all?
No.
Okay. Well, Blessing was commissioned to do a piece, and I was commissioned to do a piece, and we met
Right.
at the sort of kickoff meeting. I was very impressed by the work, and I thought it would be a perfect integration of this idea of unconventional practice, which is what this lunchtime, Friday lunchtime series is all about. Because Blessing is trained as a landscape architect, right?
Well, and an artist.
And an artist, right. So, you know, taking kind of multiple disciplinary points of departure, and I think you're really kind of merging those two trainings together. So I'll give the formal introduction, and then I'll let Blessing get to the good stuff for work. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll give
Oh,
you
yeah, please.
Blessing Hancock owns Skyrim Studio Inc, which focuses on site-specific sculpture. She utilizes her BFA in Sculpture and MLA in Landscape Architecture to create innovative work for public spaces. She's completed monumental sculpture projects throughout the world and has extensive experience working with city agencies, project teams, and community groups. Excuse me. Possessing a unique balance of imaginative thinking and technical knowledge, Blessing is a creative force in the public art realm. By using standard materials in unexpected ways, she creates one-of-a-kind experiences for her clients. She finds inspiration in the day-to-day encounter and is drawn to art as a tool for innovation and new experience. Each piece in her portfolio is an original, site-specific work that was born of a place and speaks of the surrounding people and culture. Through the inclusion of interactive opportunities to engage and participate in the artwork, through touch, sound, and movement, Blessing's concepts push the boundaries of the public experience. Light is a connective thread that runs through her work, and she believes in light's ability to enliven space. So I'm going to leave it there and turn it over to Blessing, and I think this could probably be kind of interactive.
Yeah, I hope so, yeah.
Dynamic. So, if you're
Okay.
comfortable with that,
Yeah,
questions and
thanks,
comments?
Tristan.
Yeah.
All right, great. Yeah, I'd love, this is so informal. Like, I think it's best to not over prepare because you miss kind of some live wire experiences that could happen kind of in the presentation of it. So this is loosely structured, and can you hear me okay? Like, is it, okay. So if you want to interrupt, there's really no, ending point that we have to get to or anything. So if I'd love to, gear it towards whatever you're interested in. I'll just start with an introduction. I guess I'll just start at the beginning, right? That's kind of a good way to start. So, as Tristan said, I got my degrees in sculpture as well as landscape architecture, and started public art in 2008 after being laid off from a pretty big design firm that I was working at. Along with half of the office. So that's kind of, I was kind of forced into this a little bit, but it's the best thing that ever happened. So I think that's probably happened to a lot of people and why you wind up becoming unconventional a little bit. I don't know if you intentionally try to be, but it winds up that way. And it's a good fit for me. I come from I was born on a hippie commune in the 1970s, and fitting in has never been like a really easy thing for me. So going unconventional was just kind of a real natural approach. When I first got started, so I had lost my job. I read a book about public art, thought it was fascinating, and I went to a local fabrication shop and just started building things. I just, thought, well, if I can learn how to use the tools and if I can understand what kind of materials are available to put things together, then, my imagination can just expand from there. So these are just kind of some background shots of the early phases when I was actually much more hands-on fabrication. It's changed a lot over the years and fairly quickly. So you can really only do so much if you're making your own work. So very early on, I realized I needed a lot of help, and started to hire out fabrication shops around the country. Today, what I normally spend my day doing, actually I'm going to walk around a little, is overseeing the public. So I get the public involved in pretty much every piece. And so I do a lot of communication with the public about what they're interested in and how they can be involved in the process. I don't like just plunking something into an environment without some forethought from the community. So I work with a lot of public groups in my process, and then a lot of opening events and kind of engaging them on all sides. So from beginning to end, there's a lot of interaction there, and I think that's really important for public. Oh, these are a variety of spaces. This is at Texas Tech campus in Lubbock. This is up in Calgary, Canada. This is in Shreveport, Louisiana. So I also not only engage the public through talking and presenting my work and their ideas, but through hands-on workshops. So I like to get them involved, really make it a meaningful experience. So a lot of what they input winds up influencing the work itself. This is in Tucson, where I actually grew up.
Can you say more about that?
Sure.
There's a way in which you could use art as a way, engaging in the sense that the art is eventually going to be interactive and it's a place of interaction. But it's largely, if it affects it, it's largely to inspire you. Or there's a way of trying to get the community itself to kind of design in a different way.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because you don't want to wind up with the camel, right? Like the horse designed by committee. So really, I have a very strong vision for the artwork itself, and a lot of the pieces, like this, for example, have no real community input. But I'll get into some projects that like direct input and wound up being produced into the piece. So in that situation, I create more of a framework for the vision of the piece, the overall look, and then details are filled in with the public input. So I'll give you some examples of how that works. So opening events, a lot of oversight now. So early on, I was doing the fabrication, got way out of hand because there was too much work, and quickly started to hire fabrication companies. My primary one currently is in San Francisco called Gizmo Art Production, and they're probably managing about 10 of my projects. But I like to make sure, it's interesting to be in my space because it's like there's a lot of public part where I have to be out there, but the creative part, which I'll get into in a little bit, is very solitary for me. So all of this part where I'm traveling, about half my time is traveling across the country and world, overseeing teams of people. So I subcontract everybody out. I just work from home. I don't have any employees. I make a very good living. And I contract fabricators, structural engineers, installation teams. I do all my own design work. So this is a project in China that I installed last year, just overseeing some of the installation process. And then working with the fabricators through the prototyping phase. So I'll design the piece, and then they'll come up with different techniques of how to build it and little parts of it, and then I'll start to work on, is that working for the piece, and can we make improvements? So this is kind of all through the process of getting it built. But this is my public face right now, is how I interact with people. Yes. I have a very private side too of it. So this is all engaging with fabricators and improving prototypes and overseeing how things are coming together. And installation. Not all of it. I started out with a company in Tucson where I was, that's where I was kind of raised. So what I found is great for fabrication companies is ones that have done exhibit design, because I do a lot of these interactives, which I'll get into, but they understand multi-mixing materials kind of thing, and electronics and lighting and that kind of thing. So I like to work with fabrication companies that can do plastics and metal, and and have the capabilities to bring in the lighting and things. So those are kind of hard to find. Okay, so this gets into my private side of life kind of thing, because that's really where I actually create the ideas, and the creative process for me is a very isolated experience. This is the view from my desk. Basically, when I'm not traveling, I never leave my house. I need basically solitary confinement to be in that creative space, which involves nature. Nature's kind of my, this is just down the hill from, I get in a kayak and I go float around and come up with ideas. So that everyone has their own process, but what's interesting to me is once you find what process works for you, it can be very unusual, but finding that process that works for you sometimes takes time. So for me, it's been a good balance of, I have got this very public and engaging side of the profession, and then when I actually have to be creative and do design work and things, it's very solitary. So what I do from my home studio is basically I'm just working on the computer and looking out at the view. I'm living right now in Olympia, Washington, so that was the Puget Sound I'm looking out at. And so I use nature as an inspiration. You'll see throughout my work. But basically at home I'm designing the new pieces and new ideas on the computer. I use a program called Rhino, typically. This is a piece going into Charlotte, North Carolina. I wasn't going to go into the details unless you're interested, but I was just kind of showing you what I do at the home studio, which is mainly graphics on the computer, and then model building. So I get really into physical models and the aspects of that kind of scale. I really enjoy that smaller scale, and then hiring it all out to get big. So these are just all physical models that I enjoy working on. So that's all done. I have a 3D printer, a 3D scanner, a variety of different lighting things that I can put these all together at home. So.
And when you're working on the computer, to what degree is the context of where this is going in front of you? Or is it just, you have models of the spaces?
Yes, typically, usually the process involves, I'm not applying for new projects right now because I just have more than I can handle, but typically the process is applying to public calls for artists, which are posted nationally. There's several just different web sources that congregate those into one space. Once you apply, which is a pretty easy process, then you get shortlisted if you're lucky, and that's maybe 3 to 5 people are shortlisted. This is probably a similar process to some of your practices, but then I would do a site visit. So that's kind of a whole analysis, meeting the public and understanding the site. This is all before I come up with an idea. So then I go back to the home studio, and with all of that in mind. So they're very site specific. It's all kind of it kind of sounds silly, but like an emotional reaction to the space. I find emotions a really powerful tool in design when you can get someone to feel something about the piece. I got into art after having just crazy like experiences with other artists' work. Like some of my influences are James Turrell or Richard Serra's work, or just experiencing those in space. I love it. I love going inside of a sculpture, or inside of artwork, and coming out again as sort of I always felt like it was a changing experience if you could make sculpture that big that you could enter it. And so that's very much like architecture, right? You're creating enclosures. I just love enclosures, and I think a lot of this work itself is so architectural. It's a good balance for you guys to see some of the similarities that are going on. And I'm sure in your design work there's themes and concepts in relationship to all that too, so it's not that different than art. This is maybe just a little more fringe. It's not as functional. So anyway, I've worked in a number of places all over the world. These are just some quick examples. I'll go into a few in more detail, but this is in Tucson, Arizona. I work a lot with steel and different kinds of plastics and lighting and interactive technology. So this one in particular, you touch this button and you can get the colors to jump throughout the piece and kind of have that engagement and control over the how the piece is seen. So Cocoon, made out all of stainless steel tubing, kind of an immersion experience again, where you can walk through and come out the other end. It's actually on a bicycle path, so it's large enough to ride your bicycle through the center of. All lit again, inspired by nature. You'll see that throughout the work, so it's good for me to have my kind of retreat studio, and I'm just looking at nature all day and learning a lot from that. So this is called Seed Pod. It's actually a prototype piece for something I was doing in Houston. Again, looking at nature. So these are heat-formed acrylic, and there's an internal aluminum, powder-coated aluminum structure in there, and LED lighting, and then touch points to allow you to change the colors. There's two sides, so you can engage people through the middle of the piece, and it's kind of an interesting acoustic experience in there. And then I work with a lot of stainless steel, and for example, this one, when we're talking about community engagement, this is an obvious way to describe how engagement can get incorporated. So this is a police station in Maryland. These two shields are the overall form that I came up with, and then I asked the community for input on the text that was incorporated. So that all came from primarily the police officers that work in the building. I also like to have physical interactivity whenever possible, so I'll do technology, but sometimes you get a lot of interesting public spaces if you can invite people to actually engage the work. I take kind of public very seriously, the word public. Like, if it's going to be in a public space, I don't want it to be like hands-off or inaccessible or not inviting. So that's kind of the approach I take, is that like it's very welcoming and encouraging you to engage with it and then better understand art. I think public art sometimes is kind of a gateway art. They call it gateway drugs or something, but gateway thing to maybe the galleries and the museums and everything else, that you need a grounded understanding of the importance of art before you're going to go spend your time appreciating that. So this is
Can I ask a question about
Sure.
that? So do you see it at the service of quote-unquote high art or gallery art?
I don't know that they would see it as a service, but I do.
You do see it.
I do. I think a lot of people in the general public don't have an appreciation for why they would go to a museum or into a gallery. So it's like a stepping stone, I feel like. not to demean it, because I think it has its own legitimate reason for being, but I'm a proponent. I'm promoting art in general. So however that happens, however I can make people appreciate art better, and then it just expands their entire world, because that's what art did for me. It, like, you know, it made me see my whole life differently. So if I can allow people that experience, and then it leads to a greater appreciation, like in all realms of art, that's so great. So this is at University of Central Florida campus. I'm not really going into the conceptual details of these, but we could talk more about that. But there's a few at the end I want to go into more detail about. I'm just showing you kind of materials and my approach to allowing the public to engage it in a number of different ways. So, but you can kind of see the common materials and mediums that I'm working with. This one? Let's see, I think there's a person blacked out there, but this one in the center in the back is about 18 feet tall. There's a series of 6 of them. That's the one at Texas Tech. Yeah, it's at a new dormitory building. It's a huge campus there. I mean, it's just like, so it's on one of the edges. So, and I do very little interior work actually, but when I do, like for this one example, is a very simple concept that you could use a sliding door system as an art piece to do a piece that's interactive and changing. So again, working with the community up close, if you get in here, there's all of this is text involving biosciences and things that was incorporated through an engagement process.
How permanent or temporary are your pieces? Are you meant to be permanent on the site?
They are permanent. Permanent meaning, 20-year kind of, permanent is relative, but I think they like to hear something like 20 years. The lighting, the lighting's usually not that long, so I'll give, I leave everyone with a thorough plan of how to maintain it. LEDs is pretty much all I use, so you're talking maybe a 10-year lifespan until they have to change lights and things.
On the lighting,
Mm-hmm.
many of those things seem to be panels almost, so the lighting was
Right.
uniform.
Yeah.
Are you using individual LEDs, or is it like
Um,
paneled in a way that spreads the light? I mean, how do you do that?
For ones that are thinner like that, I'm usually using like an LED strip light, so they're connected, very dense diodes clustered onto a flexible band, so you could bend it. Yeah, in those cases, and then if that strip goes bad, they would just replace that strip. So I try to use materials that are off the shelf that they can come back and fix if there's something. Right. So, but LEDs will always be around, and you're gonna find something that's comparable. So, so I'm gonna go into a couple projects in a little more detail. So this is near the Stanford campus in Palo Alto, California, and there's a series of 6 of these sculptures made out of stainless steel. And they're, as you can see, I really like amorphous forms, holistic, that have a real sense of volume and space. So these are not very easy to create out of sheet goods. So I'm going to go a little bit into the process of how this one in particular was created. Again, incorporating language collected from the community. This one's multilingual. It's like 6 different languages, different quotes and things. There was a lot of things from Steve, about Steve Jobs and stuff from the Palo Alto community. But we've even got Morse code and mathematical equations and things. And so in that way, I like to, allow for the framework. I come up with this overall form, and then I let like a different level of story be told in the details. So again, stainless steel. Here's a picture of it being fabricated. This was fabricated in Tucson. You can kind of see how this wood jig and then the strips of stainless are all coming together with the tack welds, and then everything from there gets, you can kind of see we fit it into this plywood form.
So is the jig designed on a computer?
Yeah.
They start with a computer model.
Right, everything's designed on the computer, yeah. So that jig was probably routed, and then these are water jet cut out of stainless. It's a pretty lengthy process, but it starts to come together as I think we've always left a little bit of some seams through it, but it just starts to turn into one shape, and then this integration of a touch point here for changing the lighting colors, and then kind of the final.
Do you see these fabrication processes and techniques and material geometry, is that integral to the reading of the piece, or is it at the service of a larger idea? Does that make sense?
State it again, please.
Excuse me. The techniques and the geometry and the materiality and the way that you're using a developable surface and the way you're seaming and welding and all this sort of stuff, is that fundamental to the reading of the piece, or is it at the service of a sphere with text and a projection, or does it even matter?
I feel like if my fabricator can come up with a good approach to it, I usually stay pretty hands-off.
Got it. Okay.
So, but compound forms are not easy to create, and I tend to always be leaning towards them. So it seems like we're always inventing the wheel when it comes to how some of these new ones are coming together and the process. So it is an art form in itself, the fabrication of these. Am I in the way? I'm sorry.
No. Conceptually, are these, first of all, how many of them are there, and are they all deformations of the sphere?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So there's 6 of them. They're an evolving family, I like to say. So it's a series of 6, starting with the sphere and growing into I think that one only has 3, but it grows into a 5-pointed shape. It's for an area in Palo Alto where there's a library, so combined with an art center, combined with a community garden. So the growth principle of that is bringing in that community garden aspect, the library, and then the sculpture. So again, site specificity is trying to tell that story of that specific location. And then in the evening, projection's a big part of the work, so you're going to get these. If I use point source LEDs, which come from a single point, so you get these crisp shadow patterns, and they're always color changing. So again, you get the touch point there, and you can go over and curate the entire experience of 6 of these in this courtyard by changing all of their colors. And how many what? Oh, that's a good question. I'd have to look into that. I mean, I know it's like the world's brightest LED, that particular diode, but I don't have the lumens in mind right now. But sometimes I'll use, instead of point source, I'll use many, and then you get overlapping color shadows. They're a little bit more difficult to read and engage with, but that's fun as well. So anyway, that's the Palo Alto piece. It was called Brilliance. This is in San Antonio, Texas. It's a freeway underpass. It's called Ballroom Luminoso. Again, looking at how to transform this this urban industrial space into something kind of, I like that juxtaposition of like that industrial urban with something that makes it feel like this elegance or ballroom, maybe you might go dancing there or something. So these are, there's 6 chandeliers illuminating this space and kind of tattooing the entire thing with these intricate shadow patterns that are actually recycled bicycle parts. So you get all of these gears under there. So this primarily bicycle parts, and then each one also has this detailed design area that that tells a more in-depth story from the community. So online, yeah. I've done a number of pieces of bicycles. So this one, I think I was actually collecting them local, different resources when I do my travels. There's always a bicycle shop somewhere, and you know, there's probably several here. But online's easier. This story that I'm telling in the detail design is from a Mexican card game called La Loteria, and I've adapted some of all the symbology of that card game and made it into bicycle-related themes. So it's kind of bringing in some of the cultural emphasis of San Antonio with that bicycle theme. And then they change color and change that space with the feeling of it. So, okay. So this is in Portland. It's at an emergency coordination center, which is where a lot of public services go to, like if they had a big earthquake or something up there, they would go and help coordinate the experience for the city at this center. So I wanted to tell the story of kind of what their mission is or what they're there to do, which is help save lives. So this is called Hart Beacon, and it some of the early fabrication process. So we've got these stainless steel pieces, and then this cross rolled tubing holding it all together, and then the acrylic cladding, and it's kind of got 2 walls, an interior and exterior wall. This is 18 feet tall. I think this came just in 2 halves on flatbed trucks. So this one, the story is told through the piece "Taking Your Heartbeat." So it kind of reminds the public what the center is there to do, which is save lives, and it projects that individual heartbeat onto the walls in color and sound patterns. So it comes to life when you engage it. There's it's kind of like those little heart sensors that you can put your finger on, you know, at the doctor's office. So it takes your pulse, and then the light sensors pick that up, and then there's some sound components too. And then you can walk through, so it's kind of 2 big wings, and then you walk through into a public park space. Again, enclosures. I just love enclosures, and I'm probably guessing you guys do too, to be architects. It's probably one of the main reasons you got into it, was a love of enclosures, right? This is called Fish Bellies. It's at Texas State University in San Marcos, Texas. It's this abstracted school of fish swimming through this courtyard. They have a big amenity there called the San Marcos River, and I kind of wanted to bring the life of the river out into this courtyard where all the students are living around, and create these little inhabitable cubbies that they could socialize in. So social engagement is something that I'm thrilled by when the piece brings people together and people make friends because of it. That's awesome, right? So anyway, I turned this on for the first night here, and they're all living in their dorms up above, and the space was never used for anything. All of a sudden, here's this experience, right? So I didn't even expect, which has led to different work now. As I try to kind of, there's themes that are definitely running through my work and engaging these areas where they compose and do things has led to other projects that kind of put people on display within the artwork. But here you can see all 12 of these. They're made out of sheet goods, so acrylic sheet, 1 inch thick acrylic sheet stacked together to create a 24-inch thick surface, and then it's all through bolted. And then we've got the LED strip lights inside. So again, all of them are touch sensitive. You can curate the entire lighting experience, or you can just lay around and relax and enjoy the unique kind of sensation of being involved with the art piece. So.
Were these designed to take the load of people sitting on and jumping on, et cetera, it just sort of happened?
Yeah, I'm always assuming people will use it. That's kind of the point for me, is that it's allowed. Anything's allowed, really. So they're all structurally engineered. Right now I'm working with primarily a structural in Charlotte, North Carolina. So, my whole team is kind of scattered throughout the country. There's not a whole lot of reason to meet in person these days anymore, if there's good communication with design, sending design files and emails and that type of thing. You can really work from wherever, so I work very remotely up in Washington State, and my team's kind of all throughout the country. So this is the last one I'll talk about, but I'll get into a little more detail. So this is called Chinook Bark, which is not my first title for it, but sometimes you run into titling issues with the clients. So I originally called it Cloud Ring because it's based on a weather phenomenon that they experience up in Calgary, which is called the Chinook Arc, but that's kind of difficult to say. So, but it's basically where low pressure comes in and creates this arc cloud formation over the city that's just like this kind of amazing and unexpected phenomenon. So this is derived from that experience, and it is made out of a space frame construction. So I hired a space frame company. They're called Delta Structures. They're a national company to design this space frame structure on the interior. And then it's clad with this kind of intricate layers of acrylic paneling. I just wanted to give you an impression of the sequence. So this is a 3D model that I printed to win the project originally. Can't give you the time frames necessarily, but it's like probably a 3-year project total. Just a real simple plastic. It might have been, maybe 2 feet diameter or something. Plastic model that was 3D printed, and I think it was in 3 sections because you can't print that big. So then I glued them all together into this ring, added LED strip lights. There's the initial concept. That moved into a full set of construction documents where I worked with a structural engineer, the Delta Structures system, the fabrication team, the general contractor for the site. There's kind of a larger group of people that get involved.
So by the time you go to the structural engineer, do you already have a sense of the whole piece, or do you send them a model and say what are the issues?
Well, I used to get more feedback early on when I had less of understanding of what you could do structurally. Now I typically come up with an idea, knowing that knowing the sort of physics of it, and then I get it structurally engineered after I move through the initial kind of concept phase and win the project. So. That's kind of the sequence of events. And then they do a full footing as well. So there's a lot going on underground, electrical to the piece, lots of coordination on that end, but you can kind of see what these technical drawings start to look like with that complex space frame structure and the cladding. It's pretty crazy.
Like donut in the middle, and then as you extrude out to the ends, there's kind of things that arch.
I'll show you when you. Oh, here we go. So, yeah, it's an extruded cylinder in the middle, so the walls are straight in the center there, and then on the outside they're all compound. And then the top is one sinuous band, so the top and bottom. So you'll see as they start to put the cladding on. So it was all assembled in the shop and then taken apart and reassembled on site. So here's some of it getting put together on site. You can see these, it's kind of like a boardwalk on the top and bottom with these slats. These are only curves in one direction, and then the compound curves all on the outside. So here's kind of the final product. This one's also interactive, so there's a point back here where you can hold your cell phone up to it, and whatever's going on your screen, whether it's video or imagery, the sculpture will try to emulate that with its lighting sequence. So there's, I believe there's 48 lights in there. So this is not done with strip, this is done with fixtures. So in kind of a low resolution way, it'll try to emulate. So if it's a video, you'll see kind of the same colors and motion going on the surface of the piece. Or even if you hold your, it's basically a back camera there. So if you hold your clothes, if you're wearing maybe a red jacket, the whole thing will turn red or something. So it's trying to be emotive or perceptual, like it's like a living organism might be. It's trying to copy you. So, right, yeah, it's trying to blend in. So, anyway, another part of this particular experience was engaging a multidisciplinary team of artists to hold an opening event. So this is a dance troupe that was local. We also had a composer write a musical score for the piece and perform it to a lighting sequence that we programmed. So we had kind of this, I love that idea that it can be cross-disciplinary with other artists. So here's kind of that example of the holding your cell phone up. And then some views during the day. So using some of these frosted acrylic pieces, they really hold a lot of light on their own. So during the day, it kind of glows with this white structure. But I really like the industrial look of the pieces. I know a lot of artists probably don't use these kind of materials because they're too industrial for the fine arts world, but I think out in a public space, it's pretty interesting to kind of have that juxtaposition of just common materials used in unexpected ways.
How do you deal with mildew on an issue like this where this is not watertight?
Yeah.
And the moisture, I mean, in Atlanta, this thing would be a disaster.
Well, it's designed to drain through completely, so So instead of trying to make it watertight, you try to do the opposite, which means it drains well and air can get in and flow. It will need regular cleaning. In that case, there's access hatches that can get in and power wash and that type of thing. So here it is incorporated into that larger park in Calgary.
Was the piece commissioned and designed in collaboration with landscape architect?
I saw the design of the park. I thought this would be the best corner, but no, they didn't get involved necessarily. They had already had their design in place.
But then it was all built at the same time, more or less?
Yeah, I think we came in a little after them, but they were prepared for us. So I think that might be the end of it. So, yes.
At what point do you decide that the material, you start knowing which material you're going to use or it changes?
Oh, like for just a particular project? It kind of depends. Like in the public space, there's a lot of vandalism issues. So I love using these kind of materials, but it's not always possible. So I wind up then working in metals typically if the space can't handle something. I mean, this can be regenerated, the surface, just with orbital sanding, but you know, it is it's not as sturdy, obviously, as stainless steel would be. So a lot of why I choose materials is just based on the specific location. And not all communities are comfortable with something like this because it will require more maintenance. And
I was thinking, just seeing the work, that it's a little bit related to Alice Aycock's work.
oh,
Are you?
no, but I'm familiar with her work. She does a lot of roller coasters, right?
Well, in the 60s and 70s, was very different from the 80s and 90s.
Uh-huh.
She got a little bit more phantasmagoria of it. And then Mary Miss also.
Right, I get compared a lot to Anish Kapoor, which I love, but I think it's just I have such an intrigue in compound shapes and curve and just like soft geometries. I'm so drawn to them that usually all my work has got that feeling. And I noticed.
I found it curious that you mentioned Sarah, because his work is, I dare say, a bit brutal.
You think so? It's like the tilted arc, or the ellipses. The arc is a little brutal, but the ellipses and like that one in Seattle with the.
But it's in between the brutality of the material and the softness of the experience. That's what makes it so powerful.
I think seeing that he could, like he could be so industrial, was inspiring to me. That it doesn't have to be this fine bronze something or other. You could really use any material that can hold up, and it could create that volume. I like volume outdoors. I like spaces that have a lot of volume.
So what would be the largest scale work that ideally that you would like to do?
I don't think there could be too big, but I could go back to, let's see. Early on I showed some models. That piece in Shreveport, Louisiana is actually probably the largest, although it's not realized yet. It's just a physical model, but.
You're supposed to say Versailles. That should be the answer.
Some of the, like this one is 225 feet long. It's like a city block. And probably, I don't know, 20 feet tall or so. But no, we were just hired to do the design concept, and then they were going to raise funds, which I think they've had probably trouble doing. But this is called line and sky. You get that sky element, and then below there's this continuous line made out of rolled tubing, and it's based on that Child's Book Harold's Purple Crayon, where you draw your whole world out of one line, and So it was really a fun opportunity to engage the community, and like we did wire bending workshops and just kind of get all their input into what that, because it's such an expansive experience and so open-ended. I wanted it to be this open-ended experience. Underneath it could be used for anything. I talked to a number of people about how they would use the space if it was built. So yeah, no, that's what it was intended for originally. Yeah. So that was probably the largest one. But like this one got realized recently. There's a series of 3 of them in Denver, stemming from the Fish Bellies project and how people were using and posing. So this is called On Display, and there's different forms you can pose within. And this is getting built for a veterans campus in Palo Alto. This is in Hillsboro, Oregon. This again is in North Carolina, Charlotte. So this is for a police call center. So I wanted it to be about communication. So it's kind of these two, it's kind of like this biconical form that speaks about the communication, because speed of communication is so important to them. So how fast they can pick up the phone and get dispatch and blah blah blah. So it's all of these rings of, you can kind of see in of information going in and out and kind of crossing here at this building. It's large enough where you could walk through that center point.
So, Leslie, one of the things that really like about your work is respect about it. It's the play between night and day. Light's an amazing material, right? And it's, I dare say, kind of easy to make something phenomenal with light, but it's much more. But then it only happens at night, right? So what do you do during the day? So all of your pieces, I think, have a specific presence during the day, and a specific presence during the night in a pretty successful, very successful way. So do you have a particular method or kind of approach or ideology about how a piece transforms itself from day to night?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think I've been asked that before. I don't consider myself like a light artist, where I have no form. Form's really important to me. That it has that volume and mass, that it has a presence. I wouldn't be interested in just working with light, which I know a lot of artists will do that. So I think just giving it enough volume, these are massive things, so they take up a lot of space. And then adding that level of detail up close. So example, this cut pattern that's going to be in here. This is a placeholder, but there'll actually be, information and things. As you get up into it, it's like telling more of a story. So that can all happen to engage you during the day. Then there's the physical interaction, so you could walk through the middle. So just trying to combine a lot of things so that there isn't just that nighttime experience.
So it's like having 3 ingredients to your casserole: space, form, and light.
Yeah.
And they're acting in different ways during different times of the day.
Yep. So, and if you start to get into kind of these intricate cut patterns, the sun does a lot with shadows. So I work with shadow a lot as like my day version of light,
You use materials that interact with light pretty well.
Right.
Either capture things
Yes.
or reflect it.
So a lot of times I won't use paint or anything on the surface. I like what light does to just steel, stainless steel, because it turns it whatever color the light it. If you paint it, you're kind of stuck with some certain colors at night. But if you leave it, it just becomes a mirror that will reflect any color. And then same with the white acrylic. So it becomes any color you want it to be. So, and I don't mind the subtlety of not much color during the day, especially when it's so contrasted with the night experience.
Any other questions or comments?
Sure.
So you're obviously working in very sophisticated kinds of articles.
Well, like I could use this one as an example. So this has a budget of 400,000, and probably 30% of that goes to materials. Another 20 to infrastructure, site preparation underground, things you don't even see, electrical connections, that type of thing. Shipping and insurance. There's a pretty, you break down the budget, so where me personally, if I can make 20%, I'm happy, which is a good amount of money. I mean, if you can manage 10 of these at once, you're making, you don't even have to manage 10 to make a good living, but they're long term, so you have to think about, how to manage successful income, because no one's getting the work for you. You have to get all your own work, right? You have to be very comfortable being rejected, because you get rejected a lot more than you get projects. It's very competitive. So all of these things lead to kind of me working for myself successfully, but I'm very ambitious, I'm very driven, I'm extremely hard worker, and I'm almost obsessed about what I do. So you combine that in a space where I'm looking out the window at the Puget Sound and with no interruptions, and I get a lot done. So, but yeah, that's the general kind of.
Are your commissions, do you do free design, or do you have commissions that you get paid for the design?
Typically, I get paid for design, so that's one thing I like about getting into public art, because private art or fine arts, you have to produce all your work and then try to sell it. This one I get hired based on my portfolio of past projects, and then I start getting paid, and I start coming up with ideas, and so it's much more secure.
Yeah, because there are some artists that do, they submit the art to get considered even.
Right, and there's calls like that. You can apply to all sorts of calls where some require it before, some when you're shortlisted, some don't require it at all until they've selected you.
Fair to do that, to ask an artist to do that.
Yeah, unless they're paying you, yeah. I wouldn't apply, I think, unless I was shortlisted, because they'll give you an honorarium to at least come up with a quick idea.
But that's the same as a competition in architecture, right? So you really don't treat it like free design. You treat it like an opportunity to explore an idea. And if you get the commission, great. If not, then at least you explored your ideas for certain. I mean, I'm just trying to add to the conversation.
Well, this is more secure than, and probably because I think there's a recognition that artists don't have like a lot of cushion, the way if you're working in an architecture firm, you win, you lose, whatever, you're still just working. So I think this is set up in a way that allows artists to get in more easily, like they don't have to expend money at the beginning at all, which allows you to keep, a profession where I don't have employees, I don't have to have all that stuff. I can still just maintain kind of artist title and not have to go, get this whole infrastructure set up where people are now, working in the office and doing things, which would kind of change the profession a bit. But we are babied, I think, a bit, because we get paid before we even come up with an idea. Great. I'm okay with that.
What about the liability aspect of a piece like this? Let's say you've got, how long do you have to guarantee something that's going to hold up, it's going to not do what you said, not do things that it was said it wasn't going to do?
Right. Usually, like the strict warranty, because the city winds up owning it once I kind of clear my contract, so they're obligated to maintain it. If something goes wrong in the first couple of years, it kind of all comes back to me. But beyond that, that's just routine maintenance. And they're expecting, a minimum 20-year kind of lifespan. But they'll expect, some maintenance throughout. And then something like this, you know, that could last 500 years. I mean, it's just not going to go anywhere. But, you know, to keep it to a certain level of care, it's probably 20 years. That's what
But
they're
you're not liable
expecting.
for 20 years.
No, I'm just liable for like,
First couple of years.
yes, like something was actually designed wrong about it, not how it's weathering or something. So, yeah. So my,
Typically, the sort of industry standard is 1 year
Yeah.
warranty.
yeah, it's something like that. Sometimes they'll ask for a little more, but.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, now you get your.